Hello and welcome to the next great car era. I'm your host, Daniel Martin, and today I sit down with Drew Bartel, a passionate drifter and accomplished builder who has now focused his craft on EV conversions. At Midwest EV in Wisconsin, Drew is a one-man force completing all aspects of the builds. In this episode, we cover not one, but 6 different cars he's built. I had a great time talking with Drew, and I hope you enjoy listening. Hey, Drew, thank you so much for joining me today on the next great car era. I've been really excited to talk to you, and there's so many things that you're doing. It's hard to keep track, but right now, what brings us together is you are the project manager, innovator, designer, mechanic, all things Midwest EV.
Yes, sir.
I want to dive into that, but I have been excited to tell you that this last weekend I went to Thunder Hill, which is a
Okay.
track in Northern California,
Yep.
and there was a guy drifting. And I know that
Oh,
you drift. He was in an S14, and
okay.
I went over and was watching him a little bit and waved as I left. And he flips around and comes over and is like, "Hey, do you want to ride?" I was like, "Heck yeah!" So he took me around. I had my helmet there already. I was getting some other footage of a car, the Apex Cricket,
Okay.
which you might have seen. But anyway, it was super fun. I'd never been in a drift car before.
Yeah, getting a ride along is almost as much fun as driving the car.
Seriously, it was really cool. A feeling I'd never experienced, being both out of control but in control at the
In
same
control.
time.
Yep. Yep. That's a perfect way to explain it. And that's really what got me into drifting about 10 years ago. It's the most fun I've ever had in a car.
What were you drifting?
I actually started in a 300ZX, a
Okay.
Z32. So it was a 1990 model, NA engine. Had it on coilovers, welded the diff. I didn't even have a working handbrake at the time. Um, and just went to our local circle track. They hosted drift events about once a month. From there, I ended up in a S13, and then I started going to another track here in Wisconsin called US Air. It is probably the best drift track in the Midwest. It's hard to argue otherwise. They host a big event every year called Final Bout. It's grass. All of this is just grassroots drifting. It's for fun. Hang out with your friends, tandem with your friends. Get a little competitive here and there. There's just small competitions, but it's not pro-am. You're not trying to work up to the pro level. It's just out to have fun.
That's some of the best elements of car culture, I think.
Yeah.
So, if you weren't doing anything with cars, what would you be doing?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, cars have been a part of my life since I was 16 years old. No one in my family's really into cars. I kind of got into it on my own. If I wasn't working on cars, I'd probably be driving up and down the coast in a Volkswagen van. Man, that's probably what I'd be doing, hanging out with the dog,
That sounds pretty lovely. A little
living an easy
fishing.
life.
I can relate to that. None of my family, I didn't grow up wrenching on cars or anything like that, but I got into them when I was probably a little bit older. 18 was when I got my first car that was like mine. I was driving cars before that, but it was like my car. And then
Yep.
that somehow changed things. And then all of a sudden, I remember reading, like looking through the penny savers and the used car magazines you could get and just like
Okay.
memorizing the makes and models and engines as much as I could that way before smartphones.
Yep.
The S13, do you have an S13 right now?
I just sold my last one. Um, dog broke her leg last
Oh,
fall. Sold the car to cover that. Didn't want her to lose her leg.
yeah.
So working back into it, but yeah, so I just sold my last S13. I had an SR swap, had Tomei Pond cams, sounded awesome, drove really nice. But hopefully sometime this summer, this fall, I can get back into one.
Well,
Taking a little break for the summer.
that's fair. And it sounds like you have your priorities straight, helping your
Yeah,
dog. I hope that the full
he's doing
recovery.
good.
Good.
Good. Recovery went well.
So if you did have an S13 and you were going to EV convert it, I'm
Yeah.
guessing maybe you've thought this through a little bit. Build it on paper for me. Are the parts available? Do you know what you'd put in or
Yeah. Have you ever heard of like the acronym KISS? Keep it simple, stupid.
yes. Yes, I try to remind that myself that every day.
Big believer in it. Tesla large drive unit in the rear. I like street driving all of my drift cars as well.
Okay.
So I would like at least 150-mile range, and especially charging infrastructure at the track. There really isn't anything yet. So probably want at least 55, 60 kilowatt hours worth of batteries. But yeah, large drive unit in the rear. If I could fit 85 kilowatt hours worth of batteries in the car, I would. I didn't map it out that far.
Sure.
It's as simple as that. That's all you really need. I'd probably try to weld the differential in the large drive unit or just cost. It's so cheap. But if I had a little bit more money saved up, I'd probably try to get a limited slip in there. Handbrake. I mean, run a EV controls,
You're
a
good.
T2C. Just keep it simple.
Yeah, I like that. Elegant and simple. So I'm seeing over your right shoulder right now is that red Jeep, and
Yep,
that's a totally different platform than an
it is.
S13, but you have done an EV conversion on that. So what was the original like condition of that car when it first came to you guys at Midwest EV?
Okay, yeah. So the Jeep we ended up getting for free.
Oh, that's a great deal.
Yeah, yeah. It had a four-cylinder in it with some sort of a rod knock spun bearing. I got it to start. Did not sound healthy at all. Paint was very faded. To be honest, we painted the hardtop, did a little paint correction on the paint, swapped a Hyper 9 in it, and that's about it. I never even touched any suspension components yet.
This was your first EV build though,
Yes, it was
right?
basically proof of concept. Just something we have. We bought the parts, throw it together. Something I have here at the shop, market, advertise, that sort of thing.
What was going through your mind when you were first like cracking into this?
I don't know what I'm doing.
That's honest, at least. Did you
I
have
mean,
an idea?
conceptually, it's an EV conversion isn't that complicated. You have a motor, you have a controller or an inverter controller, something to tell the motor what to do. You
Sure.
have an onboard charger, and you have a DC to DC converter. Other than that, I mean, that's all you really need to get. Oh, and batteries and battery management system. That's all you need to get the car going up and down the road.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is like the spectrum of your knowledge base. Were you aware of those like specific components? You had an idea, maybe we'll do a Hyper 9 on this, or were you like, we have this Jeep, what motors are available, what are the formulas that people are using that are working? Because I think that there's probably a handful, like 3 to 5 formulas that we see most
Yeah.
often in the conversion world.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, Hyper 9 definitely is probably the most popular one. Definitely, it's got to be the most popular one,
Yeah,
at
it's
least in
accessible.
today's standards. Yeah. But when I moved back into Wisconsin to basically start up Midwest TV or get it going, the owners of our sister company, Motion Products, were already in talks with Legacy EV out in Arizona
Yeah.
about our 32 Ford project. So that was getting going before I knew what was going on yet and before I moved back. So the Revolt motor for that was already purchased and kind of a kit specced out for it. So when I moved back to Wisconsin, I started talking with the people at Legacy EV. Hyper 9, basically the simplest, easiest option at the time to do a conversion. So we just went with that. Component wise, I knew what all the components were and what they did. I've never wired any of them up before. I didn't know that aspect of it, but I was aware of what components were needed.
Nice. Look, without like changing the budget or the parts, but more about the build itself. Looking back, is there anything you do different, any gotchas that now seem like totally apparent, but at the time not so much?
That's a good question. To be honest, for what it is, I don't think I would change anything component wise. A Tesla drive unit would be a lot more complicated, especially if you're trying to keep it all wheel drive or four wheel drive. a drive unit in the rear and the front would be very complicated. I could see going with the Nissan Leaf motor, but then you have to figure out the 400-volt battery architecture when the 100-volt nominal Hyper 9 system is so easy to do and just throw 5 Tesla modules in the car.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is some simplicity to be gained there. What about the fact that it's an off-road, Jeep? Did that
Yeah.
make it easier because there was more space, or harder because there's
Hmm.
some beefier components that you had to work with?
I don't think it complicated things too much. Our battery packs are sealed, at least the one in the front. The one in the rear, I didn't seal, but it's inside of the Jeep. I don't think the Hyper 9 I don't think it has an IP rating to be submersible, so that was never a thought in my mind to do like large water crossings or something along those lines with the Jeep. And vacuum related, we don't have heat or AC in the Jeep. I have a vacuum pump to run the brake booster, and I converted the front axle lock to cable actuated instead of vacuum. So just kept it really simple.
Oh, cool. Maybe walk me through where you mounted the motor. Is that under the
Yeah.
hood still and
Yeah,
going
yeah.
into the
So
stock
the Hyper
drivetrain?
9 is mated to the AX5 manual transmission yet.
Okay.
We retain the clutch. We purchased an adapter plate from Canadian EV, and it's actually for an Iron Duke Chevy S10, but
Huh.
the bell housing bolt pattern is the same. So we used that.
That's lucky.
Yeah, we had to machine our own coupler to hold the flywheel and clutch assembly, but our sister company has their own machine shop and very easy to utilize resources around town here.
You'd said it's 100-volt nominal. Are you
Yeah.
using the five Tesla modules in the Jeep, or did you go with something different?
Yeah, there's 5 Tesla modules under the hood and then 5 in the rear. And the 2 packs are wired in parallel.
Oh, gotcha. What sort of
So that
range are you
was
guys getting?
not a lot, to be honest. It's a pretty big brick driving down the road. I
Big
haven't
red
range
brick.
tested it for almost 2 years now. When I first range tested it, it was around 120 miles. It was not a lot of highway driving. There was a lot of 45, 55 mile an hour country roads and then some city driving. So, not the greatest, but you have to work with what you have. So,
It's a Jeep too.
yeah,
Whenever I talk to folks who have converted like an off-road car of some sort, a
yep.
Jeep or Land Cruiser, things like that, those miles go a long ways when you're off-road.
I was just going to say that when we had it out in the woods, we left the woods with the same voltage we started with, but it took up 3/4 of the pack driving there.
Well, that's kind of ideal. And then, for the rock crawlers out there, you get the torque in the low end and
Yep.
can kind of navigate those potholes
The
expertly.
first gear is almost useless without or driving on the road. There's so much gear reduction.
Just spin the tires, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just start off in second or third gear and then go up from there if you want, or just stick it in third and drive it like an automatic.
Do you have to use the clutch when you're shifting gears in the EV?
It's not exactly the same as driving an internal combustion engine car or vehicle with a manual transmission. That motor revs so fast. Or what I do with the Jeep is I push in the clutch, I'll change the gear, I'll let slowly off on the clutch all the way until it's engaged, and then I'll get back on the throttle. There's no trying to rev match
No
or
rev
anything
matching.
along those lines. Yeah.
Hmm.
I could probably get it pretty close if I turn regen on with like neutral braking. So if regen would kick on without the brake pedal being applied, I could maybe match it up a little bit better. I just need to spend the time to do that.
Got to tune that in. Are you
Yeah.
using the Hyper 9 controller that comes with it, or are you using something
Yep.
different?
Yep. With the Smart View software.
Cool. What about for the battery management?
Dilithium
Okay.
BMS. Uh, I've used them in every single conversion so far except for the Corvette. I'm used to it. Last car, that green Porsche in the background, wired in dilithium battery management system on that, and I didn't even look at a wiring schematic or diagram for it. It's like the back of my hand at this point.
There's something to be said for that for sure.
Yeah.
So you're in a pretty good position here that the first conversion that you tried, you knocked out of the park. And how long did that take you overall?
I think it was about 6 months,
That's really
on and
not
off. I mean,
long.
I didn't work on it every day. I was working on the Ford in the background, getting things going on that. And then when I wasn't working on that, I was making progress on the Jeep.
And how long before from this Jeep to your next build? Did they go back to back or was there a little break in between?
It was back to back. Next one was right going with the Autobianchi.
The Autobianchi
Yeah, fun
to
little car.
was there any differences in how you approached building just such a completely different? I mean, it's hard to get much different between a Jeep and an Autobianchi.
Yeah, very true. We're hitting both ends of the spectrum there. I mean, when I started the Autobianchi, had the Jeep under my belt, but still very green. I knew a Hyper 9 motor wasn't going to fit in the Autobianchi. From the factory, I had a 18 horsepower two-cylinder, I believe, little 500cc.
I
The
didn't know
Autobianchi
that.
it's a rebodied Fiat 500, but electric classic cars had a conversion kit available for the Fiat chassis. So I got in talks with them, and they said, hey, since the Autobianchi has been rebodied from a Fiat, not all of their components would fit in the same places, but I was able to utilize their adapter plate and coupler for the HPEV's AC20 motor. So we used the HPEV's AC20 with the Curtis 1238 SE controller,
Okay.
and I was able to fit 3 Tesla modules in the car. So that charged up to 75 volts with the high voltage cutoff of 75 volts. We did originally keep the gear shift in for the manual transmission, 2 shift gears, but the customer ended up finding it a little too cumbersome. So what I did is I took the shifter out. I removed the detents in the transmission for the shift forks. I took the springs out for the detents, and I put solid rods in place, locking the transmission in third gear.
Hmm.
So now the transmission is always in third gear, and I added a forward neutral reverse switch, and we just spun the motor backwards for reverse.
Interesting. And now, did you delete in the interior the entire shift lever completely and just have a switch now?
Yep, yep.
The with such a small amount of space to work with, that must have just really opened it up.
Yes. And the funny thing here is the Autobianchi was restored. I had a full restoration done on it about a year before I got it from our sister company, Motion Products. That car originally was a hardtop, but we had another donor car here that was a convertible, and the customer wanted this one to be a convertible. So we grafted the convertible top onto this Autobianchi, deleting the back seat, and we had a huge space now that we were able to utilize for batteries. It worked out perfectly.
Yeah. Did you then put in more than 3 modules, or is that where you
No,
put the
so
3?
there's two behind the seats and then one in the front trunk.
What is the horsepower that you're getting out of that motor and those? It's probably more than 18, I would
Yeah, I think it
imagine.
was with the voltage we had, I think it was around 40 horsepower, 40 to
So it
50. It
like
was a rocket
doubled
ship.
0 to 60.
I never timed it, but it was not bad.
Nice. Did you drive it long enough to get a sense of the range? I'm assuming probably around the town grocery getter sort of
Yes.
thing.
I had it up to highway speeds a couple of times, but they really aren't made for that. Range was right around 75 miles, which considering has about 15 kilowatt hours worth of batteries, that's pretty decent.
Yeah, that's really good. Now you mentioned that it had already been restored before you
Yep.
started on the conversion. So that really kind of cut out a whole element that you might have had to think of sourcing parts for a classic car like that.
Yep. So Motion Products purchased 5 or 6 Autobianchis from a micro car enthusiast local here in Wisconsin with the intent to restore what we could, or the ones that were restorable, and send them to auction or find customers for them. So we still have a plethora of extra components for these Autobianchis. And I think 4 of them have been restored and 1 EV converted now, and we have 2 more that are just pretty much unsalvageable. They're just spare sheet metal at this point. But
Parts cars.
yep.
When we were first talking a week or so ago, you mentioned a funny story about the Autobianchi. Was that the convertible switch that kind of happened midway through, or was there something else?
No, what everyone should keep in mind is reverse. When you do an electric conversion, electric motors have a lot of torque. Reverse gear in your transmission, if you are utilizing a manual transmission, has a lot of gear reduction. So the first time I applied the throttle in reverse, I did not have any limitations set in the controller for current. I launched probably 10 feet backwards. Luckily, there was nothing behind me.
Oh my gosh.
And it popped out of gear also, luckily. But just a reminder, set your current limits for reverse.
But now you have completely gotten rid of the reverse and are just running the third gear in reverse.
Yep.
I didn't know that you could do that. I would have assumed that that would be bad for the gear.
There's so little torque being applied in reverse, and you're typically just parking or reversing out of a parking lot or a parking spot or out of your garage and then going forward again. We've done it on 2 vehicles now and haven't had any issues with it.
Nice. So this is vehicle number 2 knocked out of the park.
Yeah.
Were you starting to feel a little bit more comfortable doing the conversions, or?
Oh yeah, my confidence at this point when this one got done, not shooting through the roof, but it was getting pretty close.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with how the Autobianchi turned out. Even like aesthetically, it's pleasing to the eye, at least to me. It turned out the driving experience very fun, quirky car, gets a lot of attention, and it looked the part. So
the technical specs, just to kind of recap on that, it was a Curtis controller with an HPEV.
Yeah, HPEVs. I don't know how people actually what they call it. I just call HPEVs.
The HPEV.
High performance electric vehicles.
So that's the motor, Curtis
Yeah.
controller, 3 Tesla modules, dilithium BMS.
Yeah, and then Thunderstruck, onboard charger, and DC to DC converter.
Solid. What was next on your path of conversions?
Next would be the Corvette, I believe.
That was a C4 Corvette?
C3 Corvette,
C3.
1970 model. Factory 350 small block, 4-speed manual car. Relatively really decent shape for the year.
Had it been fully renovated before you got it, or it was just
no,
pretty good?
I mean, some things were done over the years here and there, but not restored by any means. That car came to us from Legacy EV. The customer reached out to them inquiring about an electric conversion for the Corvette. They kind of pieced together a kit through their communication, and then Legacy EV reached out to me and asked if I would be capable of doing the conversion, since the customer was semi-local to me.
Did the customer have a specific goal in mind? We
Yes.
talked about a Jeep and an Autobianchi, but this is the first sports car.
Yeah. And I was really looking to do a 60s, 70s kind of muscle sports car for my next conversion. So this worked out really well. He wanted something equivalent in power and over a 200-mile range. Those were his big goals. A lot of while you're in there's added up, and we ended up with AC, electric power steering, heat, did a little restoration work on the vehicle, this and that. But overall, turned out very nice.
Do you know what the this next life had in store for the Corvette? Was it going to be a daily driver, a show car, autocross?
Yeah, I think it was just gonna be a little weekend warrior, retired guy.
For anyone that can pull up a mental image of a Corvette or who's looking at the screen right now, long nose, small cabin. Where did you start with putting batteries in this thing?
It was awful. Not gonna lie. Learned a lot from this one. I mean, with any conversion, you have to utilize the space that you have. You can't make more space. With the fuel tank out, we were able to put. We use different batteries. We this is our first time, or my first time, using core power modules instead of Tesla modules. And this is something that the customer kind of spec'd out with Legacy EV. But I've gained a liking for them.
Those are prismatic cells, right?
They're NMC cells, pouch cells
They're pouches. Okay.
inside of a metal enclosure. So either 3P4S, 4P3S. I think there's a 6S variant and a 12S variant. Haven't used those, but that's what I know about them.
What is kind of what's the rough size of a module? I think we've all seen Tesla modules. How does that compare in size?
They are a lot. I like to call them more modular. That's the word I was looking for. They
Okay.
are, so we used 3S 4P modules. They are half the voltage of a Tesla module, but size-wise, they are a lot shorter, skinnier, but taller.
Okay. So in some ways, this did play in your favor to be trying to mount these in a really tight Corvette.
Yes, I did mess around with I just wanted to see how many Tesla modules I could fit in the C3 and where. And with the space available, that using the Tesla modules would have been a lot more difficult. Fitting the modules in the car, the fuel tank sat above the frame rails in the rear. We were able to fit six core power modules up there. We fit 12 below that frame rail where the spare tire sat. And then the engine compartment housed 18 core power modules.
Wow. How many modules is that total?
36, I believe.
Total kilowatt hours of
84 and a half-ish. I'd just say 85.
dang. Yeah, that's like OEM car from a factory,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep.
With that amount of weight, did you have to do anything with the suspension to be able to hold it? Or
This We didn't do any suspension modifications. It did lower the car slightly. Still drove great. But we did end up reinforcing the frame rail in the rear just to support the extra weight hanging off behind the rear axle.
are these, I guess for all of your builds, but maybe this one specifically, are you guys hooking up water cooling to the batteries?
Yes. Well, I'll start back with the Jeep. I plumbed in cooling system for the Tesla modules. I cannot get them to raise in temperature whatsoever. Autobianchi, I did not cool and ended up being perfectly fine. Corvette, plumbed in an entire cooling system in and never had battery temperature issues. My philosophy on battery cooling, if you aren't DC fast charging or racing the car, it's not needed, in my experience. It adds some complications and adds a little bit to the cost for something that not always needs to be done.
One of the arguments in favor of the cooling, I think, is battery longevity.
But I mean, even watching battery temperatures while just going for a normal drive, even on the hottest day of the summer here in Wisconsin, it might be different in other climates as well. But here in Wisconsin, I cannot get the batteries to even increase 5 degrees. They're just stable.
I want to go to a racetrack in Wisconsin and race there because I got in California I'm constantly getting the heat soak on the
Yeah.
batteries.
It's hot today here. 75 degrees, hottest day
Whew,
of the year so far.
that is pretty toasty.
Yeah.
So, with that Corvette, kind of going back to it, sounds like you kind of this is a soup to nuts build with all of the creature comforts, HVAC, and batteries, high range. Was there some compromises that did have to be made in order to make this happen?
Nothing that comes to mind that is major. We were able to figure out how to fit everything in that we needed to do, but there was not room for anything else.
That's the sweet spot, I guess.
Oh, I don't like riding that line, but there were a lot of hours involved in the front battery box design and fabrication to fit those 18 core power modules in the front of the vehicle. We had to do what we had to do to fit them where we could fit them. And the battery box, it does look nice, but from a mechanic or engineering aspect of it, very complicated. There was an order of operations to assemble that battery box.
Hmm. Interesting. That just by nature of not having a lot of room to work.
Yes, or having a 3D scanner at the time.
Ah, a key component.
Yes.
Before we get beyond this, because I'm thinking, did you get the 3D scanner for the next car?
Yep, we did.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're still pre 3D scanner here.
Yep.
What motor did you guys end up using for the Corvette?
The Cascadia Motion IM 225 mated to the Torque Trans 1.9 to 1 gear reduction box.
That's sporty.
It was, yeah. But I think it's 300 horsepower and 600 foot-pounds of torque with the gear reduction and ran a custom drive shaft to the factory rear end.
That probably is plenty quick.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That car would throw you back in the seat.
Have you thought of any other Corvette conversions? If you could convert any Corvette out of the lineup, would you redo a C3? Do you have an appetite for a C5 or a C6?
Ooh, I never thought about anything that new. That would be fun. That would definitely be interesting.
There's
I would consider doing another C3 Corvette if we maybe went with a Tesla drive unit in the rear and a little less kilowatt hours just for space. The amount of time involved in the C3 project from a customer standpoint, it's hard to justify spending an excess amount in labor hours just to get an extra maybe 20, 30, 40 miles worth of range. It almost doubled the cost of the conversion just to get the 85 kilowatt hours of batteries in the car.
if someone was to call you today and they were just thinking about a conversion, is
Yeah.
there some best practices, things to keep in mind about that balance between uh, build complexity, time, and their overall goals? Do you kind of talk people through that now?
Yeah, I mean I like giving a very broad range in the beginning because there's obviously a lot of people have the shock factor on what an EV conversion actually costs from a shop. Um, you can DIY it for almost the cost of components, but there are a lot of labor hours involved into an EV conversion, and a lot of stuff you see on the internet is misleading in regards to that. But yeah, I will let them know a very broad range, but it's heavily dependent on your power, range, and creature comfort goals. And I can walk someone if they are interested. I'll walk someone through the whole process, and we can get a pretty accurate quote at the end of it.
I'm sure that that is something that people appreciate because it is so new and a lot of people just don't know kind of what goes into it. So after the Corvette, you guys got a 3D scanner. Did you
Yes.
were you just thinking about the challenges with the Corvette space wise and that's why you got the scanner, or was it more of like a happy accident? Here's a tool that you just were like, wow, this revolutionized my workflow.
Both. Going over the complications we did have with the design aspect of the Corvette, I knew a 3D scanner would be very beneficial for me. Our engineering machining department at our sister company, they were also poking around the idea of getting a 3D scanner. So us together were able to go to the owner of the umbrella here and get him to purchase us a 3D scanner to share, essentially.
Oh, perfect. And so then that set you up pretty well for the MGB.
It did. Worked out wonderfully. There's a learning curve, obviously, especially if you aren't very proficient in CAD. I had 2 semesters of SolidWorks classes in school. I'm pretty confident in what I can do there. We have the Peel 3D scanner, but yeah, I scan the trunk, I scan the engine bay, I can virtually place batteries in the engine compartment, see which way they're going to fit without using cardboard boxes that I make and templates, and I can just do everything at the computer. Once I know where the batteries are going to fit now, I can design a battery box or an enclosure in SolidWorks. Then I send those DXF files out to our metal fab department at the sister company of ours, and they'll water jet the panels out for me. I get them back, and I just basically have to drill and tap holes and angle to attach all of the sides together, and I have a battery box. And we
You
can
made it
throw
sound so simple.
efficiency has been something I've been working on for the past 3 years here. Every little thing I can do to be a little bit quicker in the process saves me a lot of time and saves the customer a lot of money.
So when the MGB came in, was this something that you were immediately excited about?
I mean, obviously, got to be excited for any potential vehicle coming into the shop. It means I have a job for the next 6 months at least.
That's
But yeah,
fair.
I thought
But it's a rear wheel
the,
drive sports car, and that's
yeah,
also pretty good too.
the customer's goals lined up perfectly for what the vehicle is and what it's capable of doing. We just kept it simple again. Hyper 9 made it to the manual transmission, locked the transmission in third gear. We did end up using core power modules in the MG, and I found during the design 3D scanning aspect of the conversion, it just worked out a lot better to fit the batteries under the hood that we needed to do.
Mm.
Um, Buttoned up some things on the MG today, and it is ready to go back to the customer now.
Oh, they must be really excited.
They are.
How did the weight end up falling when you have all of the modules under the hood there?
Oh, we do have a battery pack in the trunk too, and they are
Okay.
wired in parallel, similar to the Jeep, to double the range essentially.
Yeah.
So I mean, weight balance, it's with the batteries in the front and the rears, it settled the car down perfectly.
What size is the overall pack for it?
47 kilowatt hours, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah, that's
And
probably good for what, 100 miles of range or so in the car.
you'd be surprised. Actually, I was surprised. I was hoping for 150, 155 mile range. I just finished the range test last week and got 201 miles.
Whoa.
Had to get that. Well, I milked out the last mile just so it didn't sound like I was rounding up.
Uh-huh.
I can say 201. Um, but it did drive 201 miles on a single charge. And most of that was country 55-mile-an-hour roads, driving through small towns here and there.
Was that a 100 to 0 basically, or like a 90 to 10?
Oh, for battery consumption?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, 100 to 0.
hundred
That
and
gave it
zero.
everything it had. Yep.
Nice. That's pretty good. What do you think gives it such a good range?
The weight and the size of the vehicle, it is a very small vehicle in the grand scheme of things. Just I mean, that has to be it. It compared to the Jeep, it is, I mean, the MG got about 4.2, 4.3 mile or yeah, miles per kilowatt hour. The Jeep is getting 1.8 to 2 miles per kilowatt hour through the city.
Yeah.
So it's twice as efficient right out the bat.
Well, good comparison right behind you because you got both those cars. One is very much a brick. I don't know what the drag coefficient is on the MGB, but it has to be a lot better than a Jeep.
Yes.
What was the most satisfying thing in building the MGB?
So the MGB is the first time using a Tesla charge port. Just the port itself, it's still on the J1772 standard for the architecture in the car is, but it's just using the port. But I needed to figure out a way to kind of seal the Tesla port from the elements, since your typical J1772 plug you buy for a conversion will have a cap on it of some sort that and it will open up to keep the elements out. But what I did is I 3D printed a plug out of TPU. It's a flexible filament, and I adhered that to a factory fuel cap that slides right into the port. That was my innovation on the MG. Doing something new on each vehicle or trying something new on each one or bringing something I did on one to the next one, and it's just progressing from there. But very happy with that outcome.
Can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by you're using the Tesla charge port, but it's still a J17 standard? Um,
So,
could I take my Tesla charger and plug it into that car?
yep. Yeah, it's still level one, level two Tesla chargers.
Oh,
Yep.
interesting. Right now, I have my mobile charger plugged into a 35 amp, 240 volt outlet.
Okay.
And so it's probably, I guess it's smart enough between the charger and the onboard charger on the car
Yep.
to be able to like figure it out.
Yeah,
That's
I
very
mean
cool.
the wall charger that we have here is set to 40 amps, and its dilithium battery management system, or the MCU, is also responsible for the charge controlling. It's smart enough to step the amperage down to meet the kilowatts of the charger or the onboard charger.
That's really neat. I have not heard of that before.
Yeah.
Is that something that you are going to bring forward to further builds or just have it in the back pocket for
It's all up to
clients?
the customer. If the customer has another J1772 plugged car, we might as well go with the J1772 plug. If the customer has a Tesla or believes there is a better charging infrastructure, level one or level two with Teslas in their area, it might make more sense to go with the Tesla port.
Good to have options. Has the MGB kind of been seen broadly by people around the shop, or you said it's just getting finished now? What I'm kind of driving towards is I'm curious, maybe for any of these cars, if you can recall a notable reaction from people when they find out
Oh,
that it's
okay.
a an electric car.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago we had another sister company of ours, Classic Mechanics, hosted a Cars and Coffee event, and we
Fun.
had the Jeep, the green 356 behind me, the MG, and the gray 356 at the event, and every single vehicle there got a lot of attention. And I didn't hear any negative feedback this time, which has happened in the past.
I wonder if they've had a chance to drive an EV. I
I
tend to
think that's
find
the
that.
biggest thing. We don't, here in Wisconsin, we don't have the charging infrastructure as other parts of the United States do, especially out west or out east. I might drive home from work tonight and I won't even see an electric vehicle. That's pretty hard to not do in some parts of this country. I think people are becoming more open to it, but then, I mean, the politics get involved and it just gets messy.
Oh yeah. I feel like I've talked to many people who were maybe they had things like range anxiety, or
Yep,
they were not
that is a real
convinced
thing.
that sure. But I think it's a little different than how it's maybe portrayed sometimes.
Yep,
And then I will re-talk to someone and they've, driven an EV more, and they're not thinking about that anymore. They're thinking about how much fun they're having.
exactly. Yep. A lot of the naysayers haven't been in an EV.
You have that Porsche parked there. I'm
Yeah.
eager to hear about that if you can talk about it.
Yeah, so the green 356 behind me, it is a Rock West kit car made back in 2015. And this is just from what I've heard. I haven't dug deep into this on my own, but I believe Rock West wanted to offer an electric version of their kit car. So they worked with EV West at the time and had created the 356 conversion kit or used the 356 conversion kit in their kit car and offered it to the general public. And I think the asking price at the time was around $50,000, which in the grand scheme of things, it's in today's money at least, that's a pretty decent deal for an EV converted 356.
Yeah, that's quite a decent deal. So then have you guys just been working on that car and repairing it, keeping it on the road?
Yeah, so a couple in Minnesota own the car now. And the car at the time was just kind of was just thrown together. Um, the batteries in the vehicle were behind the seats, not in an enclosure, no battery management system, and the batteries have degraded quite a bit over the past 10 years. So the couple brought the vehicle to me for essentially a battery upgrade and some safety considerations that maybe weren't thought about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So what I did is I removed the batteries from behind the seat. I 3D scanned the area, kind of going based on their range, goals, and expectations. Decided on using 5 Tesla modules from a 100 kilowatt hour pack. That's about 6.4 kilowatt hours each. And same process as the MG, 3D scan the back of the car, place the modules in there virtually, drew a battery box up in SolidWorks, had the panels water jet out. I get them, basically assemble everything. Added a cool couple touches on this one. I had some cutouts made on the cover, and we had our machinist water etch Porsche 356 and EV Speedster into the top, and threw a couple LEDs in the battery box. It just spiced it up a little bit.
Nice. What is the motor that's being used in that car?
It's a HPEV's AC50
Okay.
with a Curtis controller.
You
So
didn't have
then with
any,
the Tesla modules, we added the dilithium battery management system to it as well with their MCU to charge or for in charge of the battery management system and onboard charger.
that's kind of neat that you were able to retain some of the old build and just
Yeah,
upgrade the parts that were in need of some TLC.
it's pretty neat to see how they did it 10 years ago.
It's changing really fast.
It is. There's components that I used 3 years ago that are outdated to today's standards.
Are you seeing more and more repairs as something that you guys are going to be doing, or are already doing?
As more EV conversions become more popular, people move. There aren't a lot of, I guess, aftermarket, secondhand, or there aren't any EV repair shops in the area where I am locally here in Wisconsin. I don't know of another EV conversion shop in Wisconsin. So a lot of our customers do come from surrounding states, just from us being the closest option. But you will always need someone to be able to fix the vehicle if the customer isn't capable of doing it on their own.
What about for OEM cars that are not conversions but are
Yeah.
factory electric?
Yep.
Is that something you guys could field a call if someone's having an issue with a Tesla or a Ford?
Yeah, I haven't worked on too many Teslas personally. I come from a General Motors background. Worked on a Chevy Volt here in the shop. I replaced a hybrid battery in a Camry, a Prius, Honda Civic. So we have some of those coming in. And that Ford Ranger you can see behind the MG is actually a factory electric Ford Ranger from the early 2000s. I believe they made around 1,500 of them.
That's
So that
cool.
was that truck's in here for a cell replacement. It was converted to lithium iron phosphate cells a couple years ago, and one of them ended up going bad.
Oh, bummer. But you can just replace that one cell. You don't
Yeah,
have to replace an entire battery pack, right?
there's 104 of them in there, and just dropped the pack down, popped one out, popped the new one in, and up it went.
I think that's a missing part of the story when people are
Yeah,
talking about battery replacement. They're thinking that it's a $20,000 endeavor, and
yeah.
there's probably a lot that can be done to keep it on the road before getting to that $20,000 mark.
Very rarely I've seen the entire battery pack goes bad. It's typically a cell or a module inside of the battery box or battery pack. There is some controversy about, as in Teslas, because they are the most popular, about replacing a single module out of the 16 and say a Model S. Some people say it works, some say it doesn't. I don't have the personal experience with that yet to say. But I could see an issue with just the capacity of the modules degrading at different levels, trying to match them up.
Sure. There might be some balancing needed in
Yeah.
more than just swapping it out.
Yep. And
Well,
that's even tricky with the lithium iron phosphate cells in that Ford Ranger. There has been some degradation over the couple years those cells have been in the truck. But lithium iron phosphate chemistry, they say in that 3.2, 3.3 volts for almost their entire charge. And then once they get out of that, the voltage moves a lot more quickly. And it's you basically, to match a new cell to the rest of the pack, you need to do it when they're fully charged or fully depleted as the closest you will be able to get. But if one cell is out of balance from the rest, say it's lower, for example, it's going to cut your range down significantly because that single cell is going to hit the low voltage cutoff and prevent the rest of the cells from draining any further just to protect that one cell. And same goes for the high voltage cutoff.
it's good to have those safety systems built into the batteries.
It is.
We've now covered what, four conversions that you did, and then two other cars that you have kind of done partial conversions and repairs. Looking back on that, what has taught you the most? Which build taught you the most about all this stuff?
I mean, the Jeep really got the most knowledge into my head. Just figuring everything out hands on. That definitely taught me the most. But I'm still learning something new every single day.
Other than the 3D scanner, which I think it sounds like it really changed your approach and how you do this.
Yep.
Is there any other ways your process has evolved over all of these different cars?
Component placement over, I mean, it plays a key factor in wiring considerations. And once you get a couple conversions under your belt, you know where the components should lay out or in relation to each other. Another tool that I really like using is our 3D printer. We actually have a couple of them. But for in battery box internals, you have to come up with a way to connect the cells or modules together. And I like to use bus bars when possible. But what I do there is I design the bus bar in SolidWorks and I'll 3D print it, and I can test fit different bus bar designs and verify dimensionally that it is going to work before I send that DXF file out to be water jet. And then once we do get the copper bus bars in hand, we send them to our chrome shop on the other side of town and they nickel plate them.
How do you stay current with all of this stuff? and
It's
it's
very
changing
difficult.
fast. Yeah. Do you have like
Everything,
some favorite spot, like online resources or?
I mean, I browse the DIY electric vehicle car forum, don't really post on there. I'm on all the EV conversion pages on Facebook. I see a lot of do's and don'ts. And when you're so busy, there's a lot of work here for one person. I do have interns during the summer months while they are home from school, but most of the time it's just me here. And it's hard to be innovative when you don't have a lot of free time. But I have a deep thinking mind, and I'm always coming up with new ways to do things, and I'm very open to new ideas. So I have a couple of things up my sleeve that are in the works for the coming months here.
Now, I might be crazy, but I would argue that that you are managing to be pretty innovative because this is cutting edge stuff. So you may be busy, but you're still doing all right, Drew.
Just kind of gets it just I don't know, it just kind of gets numbing at some point. It's tough. There aren't too many other people in my area, especially I can talk about EV conversions to that understand what I'm actually talking about. So that's difficult. Like it's hard to bounce ideas off of other people unless it is online or on a forum.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned some do's and don'ts. Um, could you maybe tell us one or two of each that you see that are the most meaningful to you?
do's use a battery management system. I've seen uh, I've seen a couple posts of EV thermal events, I'll put it. Not common. I'm not trying to scare anyone away, but there are safety protocols to follow, and they should be, as well as high voltage gloves, insulated tools. Should have another person in the workspace with you while you are working with high voltage components or batteries. That's a big do. Be safe, be smart. Don'ts. The biggest thing I've seen with the some of the DIYers or cars are coming in here is just poor wiring.
Hmm.
It's kind of mind blowing to me how some of the I can't even put it into words. Poor wire uh, and cable management. It's everything I do. I need to have it be pleasing to the eye. You can't glance at something and have it stand out too much. Everything needs to be very, very subtle to me. I've seen a lot of poor wire termination, bad
Hmm.
crimps, bad solder joints, from DIYers to other professional facilities. That's something everyone can work on.
That makes sense. And I mean, that's EVs are wires in a lot of ways, so better do that well. You've kind of alluded to it, and as we're coming towards the end of today, I was hoping you could maybe say what you can around kind of how Midwest EV is situated within this network of companies, which it sounds like you
Yeah.
guys have a lot of benefit afforded by being part of an umbrella. It has a lot of resources and capacity.
Yep.
So could you bring us through that a little bit?
Yeah. 10 years ago now, I started working at Motion Products here in Neenah, Wisconsin, specializing in Ferrari restorations. And that was the parent company at the time. And over the years, they just started expanding in more businesses that benefit them to keep things in house, like the purchase of the chrome shop, for example. A lot of components get chrome plating or nickel plating. It was easier for them to purchase the chrome shop and utilize their facility and then open it up to customers as well. Under the umbrella also is Classic Mechanics. This is actually their old building. They got moved up to the town above us now in an old grocery store that's been completely renovated. Really cool building. But they focus on more domestic import car repair and restorations. So we have that, but then Motion Products itself has an engine building department, a paint and body department, components department that rebuilds all of the vintage components you'll find on a Ferrari, clock or gauges, master cylinders, brake boosters, all of those things get completely restored in-house. We have a two-wheel chassis dyno to run the vehicles on after restoration, especially if they get completed in the winter months here in Wisconsin. We have an engine dyno. All of our engineering and machining department comes in handy quite often. All of these resources bounce ideas about, and then it doesn't even have to be EV related, it's car building related.
Yeah.
And our upholstery shop too, they helped out with the MG. We completely redid the interior on the MG, and that turned out wonderful. But having access to all of these different facilities allows us to do so much more. And we don't have to worry about the car getting stuck in a body shop for a year and not being able to work on it at the same time. If I need to, I can go over to one of our buildings and work on a car while their department is also working on it. Makes things a lot more efficient.
Do you find there to be skills transferable between these classic builds and EV conversions?
Yeah, I mean, from a mechanic standpoint, definitely.
Four wheels at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
it is. Not much different. A lot of skills transfer over. If you are looking to transfer from maybe the internal combustion engine car side of things to the EV conversion side of things, just get up to date on your wiring knowledge and wire termination, not even just schematics and wiring diagrams, how you execute with wire cable management, crimping, all those little things could save you a lot of time in the long run.
What's the weirdest question that you've gotten from someone around one of these conversions?
Funny enough, a lot of people ask me, and I don't know if they're just joking around about it or being serious, does this have a speaker to make car noises?
There's products that for that. Some people like them.
We actually, the 32 Ford project does have exhaust speakers on it, which are tunable to what vehicle you would like and also can make different noises, animal noises and people sounds.
Well, that's a good segue into a teaser. You said that there was one image that we might be able to flash up, but
Yeah.
no other details. But there is a 32 Ford that's going to
Yep.
be announced at some point in the future.
Hopefully this fall.
Is
Fingers
this a
crossed.
SEMA car maybe, or
I wouldn't put money on it, but I'm hoping so.
gotta beat the snow?
Um, yes. I can share details about the truck. I just can't really share any photos. Component wise, I can talk about all day long what we're doing. I can't share physical photos at this moment.
Well, I think people will be excited to see, and maybe just take us in the one level deep of what is the motor and
Yeah.
the batteries, and what do you guys got in store for it?
So it has a Revolt CR43 motor, mated to the 1.9 gear reduction, torque trans gear reduction box. We have this mounted basically directly driven to the winner's quick change rear end with a Kugel components independent front and rear suspension. We're building this truck from the frame up. Not a single component is really Ford anymore. It looks like a 32 Ford, kind of. We ended up chopping the roof off of the truck and we made it into a roadster. What else can I share? It's got custom front end on it, kind of grafted 35 Ford truck into the front end, wide in bed, low stance. It's on coilovers. It has an air cup suspension on it. So what that does is on demand, the vehicle can raise 2 inches to get over speed bumps, get in driveways, get on the trailer, etc. So that's a really neat feature of the vehicle. But everything has been custom, handmade. No fiberglass on the truck. Everything has been metal, shaped from our metal guys at Motion Products. Hopefully by the end of the month here, it's in paint and body. So we're getting close. We are using core power modules, and we have about, I believe it's 115 kilowatt hours, 120 kilowatt hours. So I'm hoping to have over a 300-mile range.
That's a big pack. Yeah.
It is.
Well, I'm excited to see that. Good luck with the build. We'll make sure to share it once it's ready for release. But just want to say thank you for taking the time and sitting down
Yeah.
with me, sharing about all these conversions that you've done. The shop Midwest EV, what you guys are doing up there is really great, and I look forward to continuing to watch the awesome builds that you put out.
Yeah, I'm excited to share the progress with you. Thank you for having me on here.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.